Most people experience decisions as something that begins in awareness. You feel an intention form, you recognize it, and then you act. From the inside, it feels linear and immediate, as if consciousness is clearly in charge of initiating behavior. Neuroscience complicates that picture. In the 1980s, Benjamin Libet conducted a series of experiments measuring electrical activity in the brain while participants performed simple voluntary movements, such as flexing their wrist whenever they felt like it. Participants were also asked to report the exact moment they became aware of their intention to move, while their brain activity was recorded using EEG. What Libet observed was unexpected. A measurable buildup of neural activity in motor regions, known as the readiness potential, began several hundred milliseconds before participants reported conscious awareness of the intention to act. On average, this preparatory activity preceded reported awareness by roughly 300 to 500 milliseconds. That finding does not prove that the brain decides in a complete sense before you do. It does suggest that preparatory neural processes begin before conscious awareness registers an intention. In other words, awareness may not be the starting point of action. It may be arriving slightly later in the process. Later research using more advanced imaging methods extended this timing gap. In some studies, patterns of brain activity could predict which of two simple options a participant would choose several seconds before the participant reported consciously making the choice. These tasks were highly controlled and involved trivial decisions, such as pressing a left or right button, so they should not be overgeneralized to complex moral reasoning. Still, the implication is clear. Neural systems begin organizing behavior before conscious awareness fully recognizes what is happening. That timing difference forces a subtle but important question. If preparatory activity is already underway before you feel the intention, then what exactly is consciousness contributing? One influential interpretation is that conscious awareness may function less as an initiator and more as a monitoring and evaluative system. Libet himself proposed the idea of a possible veto, suggesting that while unconscious processes may initiate action, conscious awareness might still have the capacity to inhibit or modify the action before execution. This reframes agency rather than removing it. The conscious mind may not start every process, but it may still influence outcomes. To understand why this happens, we need to consider how the brain operates more generally. Modern neuroscience increasingly describes the brain as a predictive system. Rather than passively reacting to incoming sensory data, it continuously generates predictions about what is likely to happen next, both externally and internally. These predictions include not only perceptions of the world, but also predictions about your own behavior. If the brain is constantly predicting what you are likely to do, it must prepare possible actions in advance. Motor circuits can be partially activated before a final action is executed. When you experience the conscious thought, "I will do this," you may be becoming aware of a process that has already been developing beneath the surface. This helps explain why certain behaviors feel almost automatic even when you consciously intend otherwise. If a particular response has been repeated often, the predictive model of your brain becomes more confident that this is what you will do. That confidence lowers the threshold for activating the associated neural pathways. Preparation begins earlier, and awareness may arrive only after the trajectory has already formed. From this perspective, identity is not just a narrative about who you are. It is also a set of statistical expectations embedded in neural circuits. If your history suggests that you avoid confrontation, hesitate under pressure, or seek reassurance in uncertainty, the brain may begin preparing those responses before conscious reflection fully engages. This is not a mystical claim. It is consistent with how predictive processing models describe perception and action. The brain minimizes prediction error by aligning behavior with its internal model of what is likely. When behavior deviates from that model, prediction error increases, and the system must update or compensate. Updating requires energy and recalibration. Stability is metabolically efficient. That is one reason why familiar patterns tend to persist. the same predictive framework applies to perception. Just as the brain prepares motor actions before awareness, it also prepares interpretations of incoming sensory data. By the time you consciously register what you are seeing or hearing, your brain has already generated hypotheses about what those signals represent. Awareness often reflects the result of those computations rather than their starting point. This does not mean consciousness is an illusion. It means it may be participating in a layered process rather than leading it from the front. The important shift is subtle but powerful. Instead of imagining decisions as beginning with conscious thought, you can imagine conscious thought as entering an ongoing neural process. That process is shaped by prior experiences, repeated behaviors, and stabilized predictions. If you want to change behavior, then focusing only on conscious intention may not be sufficient. The predictive model itself must gradually update. Repeated experiences that contradict old expectations generate sustained prediction error, which over time can lead the brain to adjust what it anticipates from you. Small, consistent behavioral shifts can therefore have outsized impact, not because they are dramatic, but because they alter the probability landscape the brain operates within. As those probabilities shift, preparatory activity begins aligning with new patterns before awareness even notices the change. The next time you feel as though a decision simply appeared in your mind, consider that what you are experiencing may be the moment your awareness catches up to processes already unfolding. Rather than being the sole initiator, consciousness may be the interface through which deeper systems become reportable. Understanding that timing does not make you less responsible. It makes the mechanism clearer. Responsibility may lie not only in the moment of conscious choice, but also in the repeated patterns that shape what your brain expects you to do next. If this perspective changed how you understand decision and awareness, let me know by liking the video. It signals that this kind of deep, mechanism-based exploration is worth continuing. Subscribe if you want to go further into how prediction, perception, and identity interact beneath the surface of conscious thought.